A Hall of Famer raised on the streets of Schenectady.
I would say as a high school athlete, truly a man among boys.
Coached at Kentucky by an icon, a Wildcat star was molded.
Adolph was rough. When it came to basketball, it was like being in the military.
And became a part of basketball history.
Coach Haskins, how do you plan on stopping All-American Pat Riley?
It was a very poignant film during a time when racism was rampant.
He saw it really for what it was, a pivot in sports history.
He found romance in sunny California.
He was certainly an original. We were at the top of the world.
And played a vital role in Hollywood's first championship.
In practice, I just hated to play against him. I used to say, go pick on somebody else today.
I can honestly say that Pat made me a better player.
From the broadcast booth to the hardwood,
My life had changed dramatically in just 2 years.
a legend was born.
The Lakers are the world champions.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Inside the Heat. I'm Eric Reed. On September 5th, 2008, in Springfield, Massachusetts, Pat Riley was enshrined into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame in his first year of consideration. He was forever marked as one of the most legendary and successful individuals to ever coach the game. And now it's our opportunity to honor and reflect on the illustrious life and times of Pat Riley, the player, the coach, and the man. Where do we begin? How about where it all began? Pat was raised in the small northeastern city of Schenectady, New York, where his childhood experiences helped him grow into the man he is today. Pat Riley was born in 1945 in Rome, New York, and was later raised 100 miles east in the blue-collar town of Schenectady.
We lived in a great community. It had a town square, it had 2 great old theaters. It had a central park. So I felt really blessed to be raised in that kind of community, around these kinds of people, around those kinds of values.
With 5 other siblings, Pat grew up in an athletic family.
My dad was player and manager in the minor leagues for over 20 years. My brother was a professional football player, Lee, played for the Detroit Lions, the New York Titans, the Philadelphia Eagles. My older brother, Lenny, was probably the best athlete of everybody in the family.
Pat's had great coaches, but I don't think anybody better than his father and his brother. They were pros. At a time when there were not a lot of pros around.
The path of the Rileys was you got to find a ball or a football or a bat or something. So they were great mentors and nurturers for me in that aspect.
But as a young kid, Pat did not always do what he was told.
Pat was not a boisterous, in-your-face kind of guy. He was just get in trouble in a quiet way.
When I was young, I had a hard time dealing with Mother Superior. Mother Superior was principal of St. Joseph's Academy, and her and I didn't see eye to eye on dress code and stuff like that. But finally, my dad, after intervening on a number of occasions, told my brothers, get him down to Central Park.
And so his competitive nature took full force as he began playing basketball at Central Park, mostly in pickup games.
We used to call it death ball. Nobody wanted to lose, because if you lost the court.
Pat literally had a tooth dislodged from his mouth during a pickup game at Central Park. And the tooth was inside the baseline. So the tooth was in effect in the way. So he went over, looked down at it, and kicked it off the court and proceeded to play the game, win the game, and held court.
And it was at Central Park where Pat would come across a man who changed his life, a man by the name of Walt Prisblow,
who was probably one of the greatest high school coaches in the history of New York, and he was the head coach at Linton High School.
And I guess he called him over. He said, I'm Coach Prisblow. I'm at Linton High School, and basically recruited him.
And so Pat decided to attend Linton High School. But when it came time for basketball tryouts, he quickly learned it wasn't going to be as easy as he thought.
That particular day, Coach Prisblow got all the kids sitting against that wall right over there. And then he said, those of you on last year's varsity, meet down at this end of the gym. And the rest of you who are trying out for the first time, you go through the doors into the intramural gym with Mr. Catino. And all of a sudden I noticed he put his arm up and stopped Pat from going to the varsity. You have to earn your way to the varsity. You don't put yourself on the varsity. You go in the back gym with Mr. Catino. Approximately 15 minutes later, Walt Prisblow sent the manager over to bring Pat Riley back to the varsity.
It was then that Pat became a disciple of Walt Prisblow, a coach that not only taught him about the fundamentals of the game, but more importantly, about life.
As soon as he walked into the gym, we just went over and sat down, put our backs against the bleachers, and he would pace back and forth, and then he would start.
Walt was an impressive speaker. He could change people's lives, and he did.
He'd always talk about certain things in life that were personal experiences for him, and he would make an analogy to the sport, and that's sort of where I got it.
Pat soon became the star of Linton High School basketball.
Pat always played like he was trying to make the team rather than the star of the team.
I would say as a high school athlete, truly a man among boys.
But basketball wasn't the only sport he was a star in.
He was a quarterback.
I can remember more than one occasion Pat would call the play 24 dive. And I'd get very psyched up because 24 dive was my play. I was supposed to carry the ball between the guard and tackle.
And I'd go to the line and go, "Blue 99." And he would stand up and he'd go,
Damn it, Riley, because Blue 99 was checking off the original play and it was a quarterback sneak.
He was an all-around athlete, but his biggest moment at Linton came on the hardwood. On December 29, 1961, Linton played another New York high school power memorial with a future Hall of Fame center in Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, at that time known as Lou Alcindor.
Power Memorial was #1 in the United States in high school.
this is when Lou Alcindor at that time was a freshman.
Our team had a very well-balanced attack. I think 3 or 4 of us had double figures. Pat, of course, was our leading scorer with 19.
I think it's probably the best high school basketball game I ever saw.
And we ended up beating them 74-68. People were running out onto the court. It was like Hoosiers.
It wasn't a fluke. I think we just had a better team.
It's always gone down as the greatest win in the history of high school sports in Schenectady.
The win over Power Memorial would be a part of the fabric of his life and career. Pat's gift for winning had just begun.
I've had 16 coaches, with my father being the most important. Walt Frisblow, my high school coach, taught me about attitude. Adolph Rupp taught me about discipline and organization and practice and repetition.
Pat Riley was recognized as one of the best athletes to ever play at Linton High School under head coach Walt Frisblow. And he was recruited nationally by 2 of the most respected and well-known coaches in their respective sports. University of Alabama football coach Paul Bear Bryant and University of Kentucky basketball coach Adolph Rupp. Pat Riley's college decision ultimately led him to the bluegrass of Kentucky. University of Kentucky's legendary basketball coach Adolph Rupp rarely ventured outside of Kentucky to find his talent. But when it came to Pat Riley, he made an exception.
Adolph Rupp came up to the house and told my mother, "Don't worry, I'm going to be Big Papa." The man in the brown suit. I said, "I will take care of your son. I will make him an All-American. You won't ever have to worry about your son again." Of course, she fell in love with Adolph, and she said, "That's what you're going to do, and that's where you're going to go. You're going to go to the University of Kentucky." 15-hour ride down there, and it was in the middle of the summer, or it was late June, so it was very hot and humid. And as soon as I got there, I had to go meet Adolph Rupp. And the only clothes that I had were like winter clothes, and so I put on this heavy wool jacket, and I was just sweating. So I walk into his office, he looked at me like, "Take those clothes off, boy." First thing he did was send me down to some clothing store to get some shorts.
Riley quickly bonded with his new teammates as they worked relentlessly under Adolph Rupp's watch.
Adolph was rough. He was a disciplinarian. When it came to basketball, it was like being in the military. Kentucky basketball at that time was probably the biggest thing in the country. The absolute discipline and regimented practices and detailed practices, and you could just see us get better every day.
With the disciplined Wildcats on the prowl, Riley teamed up with Louis Dampier and combined to become one of college basketball's most potent scoring duos.
Pat was a very good college player. Small forward, 2-guard, what you would call now a swingman, scored well for his team. I think he averaged about 17 points a game.
In 1966, Riley helped lead an undersized Kentucky team that affectionately became known as Rupp's Runts.
He had this team nobody thought was going to do anything. Nobody was over 6'5". Rupp's Runts. It's become one of the historical teams in the history of Kentucky basketball, and I was proud to be part of it.
Rupp's Runts made up for their lack of height with skill, finesse, and teamwork. They started the season with a 23-game win streak and a #1 ranking. Kentucky fans had confidence that this would be the team to give Rupp his 5th championship. Riley and his teammates were about to embark on one of the most historic games in NCAA history. A game that changed basketball forever. A game that Pat Riley helped retell in the Jerry Bruckheimer film Glory Road.
Coach Haskins is starting 5 black players, a first in NCAA championship history.
I know Jerry Bruckheimer, and we talked about that game, years and years ago. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine, Peter Goober, who's in the movie business in LA, we tried to get the movie made for ESPN.
What was interesting is that was a story that I found very compelling and had a lot of conversations with ESPN about trying to do it. Ultimately, Jerry Bruckheimer did a fine job with Glory Road. But what was so powerful is Pat didn't see it as a way of showcasing himself or how terrific he was in college. He saw it really for what it was, a pivot in sports history, and he was part of it.
We certainly used him in Glory Road because, he was the guy, he was there.
Coach Haskins, how do you plan on stopping All-American Pat Riley?
Why don't you ask Coach Rupp how he plans on stopping Bobby Joe Hill?
This team had a presence and a sense of urgency above and beyond ours, and that turned out to be something truly significant.
It was a very poignant film about a great team that a great coach brought together in tremendous adversity during a time in our life when racism was rampant. These players lived through that and had to overcome a lot of tremendous prejudice.
Now, they've been here before, so they're not going to give it to us. We got to go out there and we got to take it.
Texas Western and Kentucky, 5 black players and 5 white players became very connected. We sort of rose above the whole thing, and because of that, we became almost like soul brothers. We did. She has been the apple, really, of my eye. I met her in 1970 in San Diego. The first time that I ever laid eyes on Chris Riley, I knew that she, Christine Carolyn Rodstrom, is that she was the person that I wanted to be with the rest of my life.
Welcome back to Inside the Heat. A Kentucky All-American, he was now on the brink of beginning a new chapter in his life. Pat Riley had proven to be an outstanding all-around athlete, excelling in both football and basketball, and he loved both of those sports. However, he was about to discover the most precious love of all, his wife, Chris Riley. Even though Pat Riley did not play football in college, he was a very good high school football quarterback. And in 1967, Riley was drafted by the NFL's Dallas Cowboys.
They wanted me to be a cornerback, a defensive back. And I said, I don't want to be a defensive back, because I'm a quarterback.
I thought he was as good a football player as he was a basketball player.
In 1967, Pat Riley was also selected in the first round of the NBA's draft by the San Diego Rockets.
When I got to the NBA, forward to play guard, that didn't work. I could not use my left hand, but I knew that there was a role for me in this league.
As a rookie, Pat met the love of his life, Chris, at the San Diego Sports Arena.
She walks in to this exhibition game that's being played.
And I looked across and I saw this handsome, tall man in a blue suit.
It was like a light midnight blue suit on, so I was dashing, dapper. And I looked at her and she looked at me, and then she moved on. And about 3 or 4 days later, I was at South Mission Beach, and I saw her in this avocado green bikini. I just couldn't take my eyes off her. It was very hard, so.
I think he had the worst line of any line I've ever had. And he said, if you were, are you in the book?
Are you in the phone book? She turned around and kept walking.
He's very spontaneous. We had a good time. It's certainly an original. We were at the top of the world, young, in love, and I just believed in my man.
In 1970, Pat Riley was sent to the Portland Trail Blazers as part of the expansion draft.
The first morning, after we arrived, we got a call that his father had died. And he left, of course, immediately. And he came back and went right into training camp with it rainy and gray. And after maybe a week or so, it became very clear there was not a place for him. And he basically went to management and said, trade me or cut me.
A few days later, the Rileys were on their way to Los Angeles, thanks to Lakers broadcaster Chick Hearn.
He used to call the games when I was playing for the San Diego Rockets, and he liked this Irishman. He liked me being an aggressive player, and it was his recommendation, that they signed me.
thought of playing with Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, and being in LA, we were ecstatic.
When I went to the Lakers, general manager Fred Shaw said, "Do you want a job, Riley?" And I said, "Yeah, I want a job." And he said, "Will you be a practice player? And you will never get the play." And I lied to him, and I said, "Yes." I said, "Yes, I wanted the job." And then he said to me, "Your job is to keep Jerry West in shape."
I think intense would be the word that would probably be best suited for Pat. In practice, I just hated to play against him because it's very physical and you're tired and you're sore. And I used to say, "Go pick on somebody else today, leave me alone today, I hurt."
Pat always had a great work ethic. He would give you 100% the whole time. I can honestly say that Pat made me a better player.
You know, I got to remember, Pat was an All-American basketball player. Just because he wasn't getting minutes with the Lakers doesn't mean he couldn't play the game.
He didn't play for the first 33 games. The crowd started chanting for.
They started to chant, "We want Riley." You know, I mean, people saw this guy every night on the end of the bench. They didn't know who he was. He looked like a ball boy. So one night, everybody got hurt and everybody fouled out. And guess what? I get up off the bench and run down, and go into the game, and people are cheering for this guy. I got it down and I had a good game. I'll never forget I had a good game.
In the 1971-72 season, Pat Riley played a role on one of the best NBA teams of all time. Coached by Bill Sharman, led by Chamberlain and West, the Lakers set an NBA record, winning 33 consecutive games, leading them to an NBA championship.
Pat had a hand in winning that championship, even though he came off the bench.
I'll never forget when the final horn blew. I was on the court, Jerry was already off the court, and he was running to the locker room, and I was running this way, and I jumped on his back. And you know how profound an image, because I've been riding on his back my whole life. I've been riding on his coattails my whole life. It was one of the great celebrations ever. Back in the 80s, we didn't realize just how special it was. We had a great leader, probably the greatest leader that I've ever coached, in Irvin Magic Johnson. He's a kindred spirit to me, refused at the hip. We have been ever since we met. I was absolutely blessed to be around those players and get the opportunity, my first time as a head coach in the NBA.
Pat Riley ended his professional basketball career in 1976, and although the sun had set on his playing days, a new career was on the horizon. Hall of Fame broadcaster, the late Chick Hearn, who Pat credits as one of the men that molded his life, once again called upon Riley to take on something he had never done before. The result was the birth of a Hall of Fame career and the legendary Laker dynasty.
Even though there are coaches who can change your career, there are broadcasters who can make a tremendous change in a player's career.
He immediately went and dove into this whole career of media, and Chick opened that door.
Chick Hearn was a sounding board, a confidant, a supporter of Pat, not only as a broadcaster, but also as a coach.
Chick Hearn was the man who encouraged me to get out of the booth and go down and be an assistant coach when I was afraid to go down there. That's when Jack McKinney had an accident. Paul Wested became the interim head coach, and they just wanted to get somebody inside the family to assist him. So that's where my life changed again when I went down to the bench in 1979.
That season, the Lakers met the 76ers in the finals and won the crown, earning Riley his second championship ring.
There it is, it's over, and the most valuable player is Magic Johnson. Pat Riley, on behalf of broadcasters, that's how you started the season,
Pat.
Your reaction?
This is it, Brent, this is it, and Kareem, Cheryl, Chris, we're beyond. The party's starting here, but it's going to end in L.A.
After 2 seasons as an assistant coach, Pat Riley's life was about to take a dramatic turn.
For Jerry Buss, I called Jerry West, and they said there was a coaching change, and then Jerry West called me and said, "I think you're going to be the next head coach."
Dr. Buss has made a decision that he would like Jerry West and Pat Riley to be co-head coaches. And when they go up to the podium,
Jerry stated he was not going to be a co-coach.
And the press kept going back and forth until finally Pat stood up and said,
"Well, if nobody wants it, I'll take it."
He wanted to be a coach. He went to a lot of schooling in order to become a coach, doing just about everything you can imagine to do to prepare yourself to be an NBA coach.
It was kind of a weird, surreal 2 or 3 day process, but we showed up at practice the next day.
Chris and I had talked the whole night about what my back's against the bleachers speech would be the next morning. And I remember walking in and looking them in the eye, and I said to them, "You're either with me or you're against me. A house divided against itself surely will not stand. You're either in or out." And that was how I started my coaching career.
Riley carried on the backs to the bleachers speeches that he learned from his high school coach, Walt Prisblo, and he developed his own unique coaching style.
Pat looked at basketball not just as a game, he looked at it as a science. Pat was like Captain Video back then.
He would break down individual tapes for us of the guys we were going up against.
Pat from day one was definitely a player's coach. He was real big on the positive peer pressure. He really managed players well.
The sign of a good coach is can take any kind of team and mold them into what he thinks is going to allow them to succeed. And Pat was able to do that.
We were down and out, and what he did was brought everybody back in together and on one accord with one goal, one purpose. He made the game fun again.
If your main players are doing what you ask them as coach, then the others kind of fall in line. Magic was a very special player, and I think the rapport that they had was among the best coach-player relationships ever.
He believed in Pat, and Pat believed in him.
He let me be the point guard and the general for him to call the plays. We were really in sync with one another, and I was junior Pat Riley on the court.
In Riley's first year as a head coach, he led his team to the NBA Finals.
The Laker bench all standing, and all of them got a piece of paper, and on that piece of paper is written their ring size.
It would be his third championship ring and his first as a head coach.
The Lakers are the world champions.
A long year. There's been a lot of adversity with this team. The players deserve all the credit because they're the ones that played. They trusted me early in the season when I didn't know what I was doing, and we've come a long way.
Watch him become a superstar coach and watch his first championship, that was really special.
We were all just one, and we all had the same goal. And we wanted to win for him because he was a rookie coach and nobody expected us to do it.
Everything just clicked for all of us, for him as a coach, for me as a player.
Bringing Pat in as the head coach ended up being a breath of fresh air for the players of impact on that team.
It was just a surreal experience, for me. My life had changed so dramatically in just 2 years, from a color analyst to, championship coach.